One of the baddest 69 Corvettes you can buy is our muscle car of the week. The Corvette got a redesign for 1968, and this was now entering its third generation, which today we call the C3 cars. At some point within the past 10 years or so, people started calling the cars by their generation, C1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Of course, now we're on C7. But the C3 cars were a pretty dramatic departure from the earlier C2 design. In fact, they were a lot longer, they were a little bit lower, and they're one of the most distinctive cars that General Motors had ever made. Today, we're looking at a Daytona Yellow 1969 version. And of those C3 cars, my personal favorites are the earlier ones, the 68, 9, and 70, because they were built before the government-mandated 5-mile-an-hour crash bumpers. So they still had a real thin chrome bumper on the front and rear, which accented nicely against the body color, and it didn't look like the entire car was made of plastic. I think as you got into some of the mid-70s cars, those crash bumpers were wrapped in a flexible plastic material, and the body kind of lost a little of its gleam, you know, not having the chrome bumpers. But this 69 car is really sharp looking in my opinion. And there was a handful of differences between the first year of this design in 1968 and the 1969 car. Some are obvious and some are kind of subtle. An interesting one is that the 69 steering wheel diameter is an inch smaller than the 68, so that you could get in the car a little bit easier, because you know, you don't drive a Corvette, you wear one basically. Some other little details, like the reverse lights were moved into the tail light in the back. The fenders didn't have quite the same flare. And one interesting element that came back for 69 is the word Stingray. Stingray in the earlier cars was actually 2 words, and it was gone completely for 68. But for 1969, just above that fender gill-shaped vent, you see the word Stingray, so it came back. But one of the reasons why we chose this particular car for Muscle Car of the Week is what lives under the hood. It's always cool to see a 427 under the flip-up hood of a Corvette like this. And this one is a L71 version, which means it's a 427 cubic inch engine, high compression, 11:1 ratio, solid lifter camshaft, aluminum intake manifold topped by 3 2-barrel carburetors, made 435 horsepower, 460 foot-pounds of torque, definitely enough to get you down the road in style. It's an 11:1 compression engine. It's got an iron block and iron heads, but a high-flow dual 2-inch exhaust system, which made this 435 horse 427 just a real blast to drive. This car also has the Muncie close ratio 4-speed manual transmission and a 355-to-1 rear gear. So you could get 4 different 427s in 69. The L71 435 horse was almost the top dog. The real hot engine was the L88 427. They only made about 106 of those. I think they made about 2,700 435 horse cars. So they were a lot more popular and packed a similar punch. The L88 is only rated about the same for horsepower, actually a little bit less at 430, but they cheated there because the L88 revved a lot higher and continued to make power long after this thing. But getting behind the wheel of a 435 horse 427 69 Corvette definitely does not feel like a slug. Corvette interiors have always been like a race car cockpit, and this one's no different. You've got deep bucket seats, you've got a full-length console, and there's a lot of little details, like on the 4-speed shifter console, there are individual lamp monitors to show you maybe you've got a bulb burned out, it'll light up right there in the console. You've got your air vent system, an AM/FM radio, a full complement of gauges up at the top of the console, including a working clock for a 1969 car. That's kind of unusual. And of course, the dashboard has the large speedo and tack, but you don't find any air conditioning or power steering or power brakes. This car's all business. Now, if you're going to restore a Corvette or buy a classic Corvette, the paper trail is, worth the price of the car. You really want to find something that has documentation stating it truly is what the seller is representing the car to be. And in this case, looking at the VIN and the paperwork trail, this car is a very, very documented, legitimate 427, 435 horse car. In fact, the paperwork goes all the way back to 1970 on this car. There's a thing called a tank sticker, which is a sticker affixed to the car right above the gas tank that shows the options that it came with, and the original tank sticker is still with this car. And over the years, all of the piece parts of this car have been documented so that everything on this car is date code correct. There's no parts on this that were added later, so it's only got just over 30,000 miles on it, believe it or not. And when you start looking at all the little pieces, the engine's never been apart, it's never been out of the car, all the suspension stuff is original. You know, about the only thing that's not original to the car are the tires, and at some point it had a repaint, but it's painted in its original, you know, bright, screaming Daytona Yellow. So it's a really cool car and a great example of a surviving Corvette. It's not 100% original because of the paint, but all the original parts are there, you know, date-coded elements, even down to the little rubber vacuum lines. Those are all original, and believe it or not, the T3 headlights are the same ones that this car came with back in 1969. If you're into Corvettes, or this car in particular, you want to check out a new book called The Art of the Corvette. This Yellow 69 is one of the featured cars in this book, and there's a whole bunch of super rare, either highly optioned or very powerful or special or significant Corvettes in this book. It's published by Motor Books International. It's got some outstanding photography from Randy Leffingwell, and a lot of the cars in this book are part of the Brothers collection. You can get a copy of the book on our website at vatvshow.com/store. This is another one of the cars in the Brothers collection that would look really nice in my garage. You can see more of this on our website at musclecaroftheweek.com. And we also have a newsletter now. You can sign up and get email blast right from the source at Muscle Car of the Week. Don't forget the Facebook page is there too. You can play around on that or subscribe to our YouTube channel and you'll never miss an episode of Muscle Car of the Week.